Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me this morning. My name is Adrian Becker, and we will be going through the practical insights for Copilot for Microsoft 365 today. We're just giving people another minute as we have quite a significant number of attendees today. On a more interesting point, we have just found out this morning that the Q&A session is down at Microsoft this morning, so questions and answers section might be a bit difficult, but luckily for me, the team has come up with an ingenious way for you to submit your questions this morning. So what I'm going to do while we wait for the final people to attend is just put up a QR code if you want to scan this on your phones or to submit some questions, and it will be appearing in the slides as we move along as well. Please feel free to submit your questions. You can put your name in, you can do it anonymously, but as I say, unfortunately the Q&A sessions seems to be down at Microsoft this morning. So hopefully everybody, I'll do my best to do it. Alternatively, as I say, you can email me directly as well from a point of view, and I will endeavour to answer all of your questions as we move forward. The session will be recorded, so from a point of view, there will be a recording, so feel free to watch it or share it with any of your colleagues who can't attend, but as I say, it will be recorded, and I will be having a Q&A session at the end, and any questions that you want to submit afterwards, you're welcome to submit to me, adrian.backer@softworks.com. And as we just move on from a point of view, I've given people a few more minutes. As I said, I'm Adrian Becker. I am the Director for Microsoft Security Services at Softworks and also CISO for Softworks and the ClearSprings Group. So hopefully what we'll do today is show you the impact of Copilot. I've been using it personally for over a month now when it first became live, and since the last session that we've done, there's been a couple of practical insights that I've seen, and I'm going to give you a not live demo. I've recorded a few sessions, not on every product, but wanted to give you an example of the art of what's possible, what can be achieved, the type of questions you've got to think of, and what the potential impact will be on your organization. With that in mind, what the agenda is for today is going to be a demo of Copilot for Microsoft 365. We will then look more around how do I deal with the compliance around the searches that is undertaken, or how my users use Copilot for Microsoft 365. And then finally, security around Copilot and how do I get started moving forward. And as I say, as we move forward, please feel free to ask your questions. I will do my best to answer as many of these as I can. It's quite a large number of people attending the session, so I'll try and keep it, leave a little bit of extra time at the end for questions. But as it's 4 minutes past, we'll just jump straight into it. For the people who might not have attended my last session or that's not familiar with Copilot for Microsoft 365, Copilot is Microsoft's AI-powered productivity tool, leveraging large language module language, which then basically interrogates your data and lets you use natural language to execute tasks in Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Teams, and other applications. As I say, from a point of view, it helps you find information easier. It helps make you more creative. For me, on a personal basis, this sounds a lot like sales and marketing, a little bit of woolly words. What does it actually mean for me on a day-to-day basis? What information do I get access to? And that's what I'm going to try and answer today, is show you how does it work practically. And from me on a personal basis, as we go through this, I think if somebody said to me a year ago, I would be using Copilot as much as I am at the moment, I would have said, no, it's not really going to help me on a day-to-day basis. I will use it occasionally, but we'll have to measure the success. I've started to find that I'm using it now daily, and it has improved my productivity on a daily basis. And I think that's going to be the key that you need to look at as an organization. How does it improve your productivity? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the return of investment? But on a personal basis, I've already made the decision. I'm not giving the license back. I'm definitely using it, and I'm going to be exploring to see where we can use it further in our organization, for example, on a day-to-day basis. But I will talk you through some of the practical steps that I found so far that's helped me. Now, people wonder, well, what am I when I'm using Copilot? What is it accessing? Why is it not a security risk? Is it not doing things or bringing data back that it shouldn't? Well, let's just have a look at what it is doing from a logical architecture point of view. The user leverages one of the many apps that's available through Office, so for example, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, or Copilot for Microsoft 365 with the chat feature. This then queries sensor data through the graph, runs it through the index, and queries the data that you have access to. And that's the bit that I want to be really clear about, because people keep worrying about, well, it's bringing back more information than it should. Well, what it actually then means is I have access to more information than I should on a daily basis. But what it will look through is all of my user folders, recordings, SharePoint sites, team sites that I have access to, any group mailboxes or user mailboxes, my personal user mailbox, and any other groups potentially like Teams, etc., that we have access to. And it will bring back that information, present it, regurgitate it, and help me be creative on my day-to-day basis. And when I say creative, it can be as simple as what resources do we have around a certain solutions? And I'll use that as an example later. When I'm in a meeting and a Teams call, is there something that I need further information on? Is there action points I need to take down? There's a number of practical benefits of running this on a day-to-day basis that we will demonstrate and highlight as we move forward. So just let's start jumping in into the live demo. As I say, I've recorded this earlier. I'm going to try and talk you through it. I'll stop on certain areas during the demo, but what I wanted to do is demonstrate of how the product works. I didn't cover every single solution, but I will talk about it in Excel and Teams as well. But to start with, let's start off with Copilot in Word. As I mentioned in my last session, you can use it in the browser, or you can use it in your Word application. As you can see here, for example, this is a new document, technical specifications document that we have on a product. This is a sample one because I don't want to share personal information. But what it means is if there's a document that you've opened up, you can use natural language to ask questions around the information that's inside that document. In this example, I asked how long does it take to charge a specific new model that we have. If you look at a car dealership, you can ask what is the miles per gallon, what is the benefit. But then you can start thinking as well about, well, hold on, I've got this whole document, it's got significant information. I would like to know some more of the technical points that I should maybe consider. Instead of me reading the whole document, I can just type in what are the key technical points I should talk about, and it will interrogate the document and bring it back to me from a point of view. And the bit that I wanted to show you as well is it's not quick. Some of the answers can be relatively fast. Some of it takes a lot longer to generate the information. But what we've just seen here is it's brought back 7 points for me. It's showing me the references inside the document where it has come back, but the information is presented back. This tends to work very well when you are trying to interrogate information, try and get more data back. For me on a personal basis, yes, it's great, but that's not one of the main usage of Copilot that I've been using. But I just wanted to show you very quickly that you can interrogate a document. If we then move on to, well, that's great, but actually I'm a salesperson. I'm about to I've written a proposal, or I need to present information back in an email, and I don't know where to start. I've got this documentation, but I don't know how to write it, or it's going to take me a long time to try and regurgitate and summarize it. What you can do is ask Copilot to write you an executive summary, for example, referencing the document that you want to reference, and it will generate whatever you want from that point of view. So in this example, I've asked it to write me executive summary based on that technical specifications document. I can now copy and paste this into an email, for example, send the document with the executive covering email. You still need to check it. That's going to be one of the key areas I do want to highlight. You need to look at the information that's being presented. You need to look at what data is customized. But on a personal basis, this is one of the features I'm using quite a lot at the moment, is writing myself executive summaries, providing information in, and getting that executive summary written up for me to help me accelerate my productivity. Or if I need to add additional information into a document, I might say, rewrite this section, make it more, expand on this area, or I will insert and say, go and find information on the internet that I can supplement certain parts of my document for. But on an ongoing basis, this is one of the areas that I found very useful personally. If we then, look at here, you can go and query off the internet if you've turned it on. So what I've just done here is, for this example, is I've said, create me a SWOT analysis comparing Azure and AWS. And what the system will do is very quickly generate a SWOT analysis between AWS and Azure for me. But on a practical steps, I've had requests from customers that says, do you mind giving me more information on two different solutions? Or do you help me compare? Or I get questions back regarding, can we do some sort of research on certain solutions or certain products that's out there? I've been using Copilot in Word to go off, query that information, bring it back. I can then highlight sections saying expand or complement or find further information that I can bring into this document on an ongoing basis. But from a security point of view, I can have it query any of the documents I've got access to. And in Word, you've got to think about it. If I want to write an executive summary, I can say, write an executive summary / and start typing the document name that I want to refer to. And as long as I've got access to it and it's been indexed, it will appear, and the options are there for me to summarize those documents or pull information out of that document. And I think that is what is absolutely critical for you as an organization. By leveraging AI, I've got access to the data that I already had access to. There's nothing new. This is just a tool to help you be more productive and get started, because we've all been there where you sit in a document, you don't know where to start. You need to write a new policy. I can tell Copilot, for example, to write me a policy around artificial intelligence, and it will draft me a first draft that I can then edit. And that sort of brings me on very quickly just to the art and science of prompting. And this is a bit that I just want to go over, and I know we touched on it last time, is whenever you use Copilot for Microsoft 365 or any of these artificial solutions, think about what you're trying to do. What are you trying to achieve? So am I looking for 3 to 5 points around a product? Am I looking around the context of where what context is being asked for? What do we need to focus on? Do we need to reference certain documents that I want to do that? And how would you like the type of the output? Is it formal? Is it very simplistic? Think about your target audience, but the more specific you are when we engage with Copilot, the better the solution, the better the answers, the better the results that you will get on a basis. And I will touch on that, for example, because there's some personal information on certain areas that I want to highlight as I move forward. Now, with Copilot in PowerPoint, this is one that's very interesting from my point of view, really. and I'll just start here. What we've got here is a large document. This is our CIS 365 for companies, and it's about, in this example, I think it's about 40 or 50 pages. And I need to been asked to, do you mind creating a slide deck for it? Well, hold on, that's a lot of work. What I can do is go into Copilot, tell it to create a presentation for me, and reference the file. As you can see, I put the / in, start typing in the name of the file that I'm referencing it. It finds that matches those names, and I can then generate the presentation. Because this is a large presentation, it takes a while. I'll be honest, it's not a 5-minute or a 1-minute exercise. It takes a few minutes. I've sped this up and then slowed it down to when I got to about 98%, 99% to show the time that it takes. But we've all been there where we're sitting thinking, well, where do I start? What subjects should I do? How am I going to deal with this? By using Copilot in PowerPoint, I can generate a draft slide deck that I can then use and start editing. And a few points that I would want to point out at the same time while the video is playing is, think about your templates. Somebody's got to go and create the corporate templates, publish it, no reference where Copilot should access those corporate templates, because otherwise Microsoft will just use its own, Copilot will just use its own template, for example. You want to make sure you use your corporate template, get that published in, think about where it's going to be located, making sure that it is referenced when people create their templates. But these are good practice, but it's not just saying to people start using Copilot in PowerPoint without the references of the templates to be used. So have a look at that, think about that. But also, I would say the areas that Microsoft is still improving in is the imaging. Yes, I can ask it to add imaging, but the quality of the images, I will be honest, didn't wow me. We're seeing that they can get better, but as they integrate more AI, as they integrate their imaging programs further, I just see this improving significantly. We got to remember, it's effectively been out for a month to the sub 300 license market, where you can get it with a single license. We're seeing more adoption. It will just get better as they move forward. But as a first stance, fantastic way to start, fantastic content. Oh, and in my case, I create these slides, copy the contents that I want into my normal slide deck, get it to summarize, get it to help. And what I can do, for example, in these slides is say, make it more wordy, make it less wordy, make it more graphical. There's loads of these areas that you can do to make it, bring it, come to life. But marketing, anybody responsible for creating slide decks, this will be a great help for the days when you need to put something together quickly or you are stuck. And there's loads of other scenarios, but I just wanted to show you very quickly what it would look like in PowerPoint. And so let me just keep on. Then we get to Copilot in chat, which is Teams chat or chat for Copilot. I think this is probably the most productive area that I've used and where I've had the most use out of Copilot on a day-to-day basis. My team started to ask me, why do I ask them less what they're doing, what they're working on? Because I'm not asking them anymore, I'm just asking Copilot. And a good example would be, in this example, I've said, list the files we have about CIS 365. And it brought back all of the documents, all of the emails, all of the websites, anything that I have around resources that we have internally with the references of where they are located from a point of view, and listing the reference points in that. It means that I can ask generic questions of the system to say, what information do I have? Or I can say, what has /X worked on this week? And it will show me all the files that it's worked on this week from a point of view on an ongoing basis. We can also see that having retrieved that files, I can say, well, tell me more about file 1 in the right-hand top corner. And it analyzed the file, told me a lot more information about that file, and presented it. I then said to it, write an executive summary about the file listing, 5 bullet points, but don't mention the author. And it gave me a very quickly executive summary of that document, listing 5 bullet points that I can then present or pass on to individuals. But what this has become, sorry, Patrick, can you just mute yourself? Apologies. Um, from a point of view that you can present yourself on an ongoing basis. Now, what's a bit that is very, very interesting from a point of view to having this is there's no record of me accessing that file. There's no record of me seeing that information unless you got auditing and compliance, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail. And this is probably the area that is surprising people the most, because I can ask generic questions of the system, getting access to information without any evidence of me accessing any of these documents on an ongoing basis. And I think from me, I love this feature, but it's also very scary for some of the organizations, because from their point of view is, well, hold on, we don't know what our staff is doing, what questions they're asking. And I'll give an example of one that I've done is what I've seen people use, where the question was asked, what payroll information do I have access to, or show me certain payroll information. And he brought back access where somebody by accident put an email into a group chat or a group section, or the permissions was given incorrectly. So you can find a lot of information in this environment, but it's very beneficial. It's very useful on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is one of the areas that I really enjoy, but this also meant that you've got to be very careful around your compliance and the security on an ongoing basis. We can then talk about Copilot and Outlook. Well, I'll be honest, Copilot and Outlook still needs work. I like it, it works, but you can't really reference files easily from a point of view. So, but you can get it to draft emails on an ongoing basis. You can also have it rewrite emails. It can also coach you, and we'll touch on the coaching. But the area that I've really liked in Outlook is using it on my mobile phone, if I'm honest. That's where I've found the most use of Copilot for Outlook in Outlook, because what I would tend to do is when I'm out or about, and we're all on the move always, and I can't write emails and type while walking, or we shouldn't in any case. I can click on my email, click on the Copilot button, press the microphone, and start talking to Copilot, saying, please draft me an email to X listing these 5 points that I want to do, list some of the points, make it sound friendly, make it interactive, and I want these points to be recorded. It will then draft the email for me, write it in a professional way, and I'll save it just to top and tail when I get to a train station or a coffee shop, and I can continue working. And I found my productivity, being able to write emails, respond to emails by just being able to talk and asking it to write, has significantly helped me on a day-to-day basis. Or summarize an email. We've all been there where you've been sent an email where somebody says FYI. Well, great, that's great for my information, but what does it cover? I can literally say summarize it for me very quickly, and it will summarize the email. There is limitations on how deep it can summarize depending on how long the thread is, but for most people it works. But in this example, I've asked you to draft an email to HR in a friendly tone listing 5 reasons why I should have my birthday off and how it will be motivational to me. And the answers wasn't bad. It would make me feel appreciated and valued. It would give me a chance to relax. And it's justified some of these points that I can now send to HR. But this was sort of a tongue-in-cheek example. But other practical examples would be writing an email referencing external information that you might want to do, or referencing information you want to present. So this is just another way to assist you. And if I touch on the next section, which is the coaching, where we've all been there with email, where we're trying to think, right, I'm about to send this email. I'm not sure if it's rude or how it's going to be perceived. Maybe I should just ask somebody. Well, instead of asking somebody, you can literally now say, highlight the email and get Copilot to coach you. So in this example, I was quite rude to somebody. Can send me the latest report, ensure that it's more accurate, as you made a number of mistakes which was significant and didn't reflect well on you or the company. Well, quite harsh, because if I was the person receiving that, I will feel very uncomfortable. So I've asked it to run it through in this example, and as you can see, it came up with a number of ways of improving it. You could be more polite, to consider the audience, and it provides you with a lot of areas on how you can rewrite the email and make it more engaging or tone it down, and think about how is it going to be perceived. And as I say, this is sort of early days from a point of view. They are talking about expanding Outlook to even start learning the way you sign off. So if you sign it off, I don't know, Jack, John, or however you normally end your emails, it will learn from how you normally end your emails and then start replicating that as it auto creates the emails. And from the user's point of view, again, it's an assistance tool. It's as Microsoft call it, Copilot. It currently only works in the new Outlook client, which is a problem for some organizations. But if you look at the roadmap, I think by the end of the month, they were planning to start deploying it to the old Outlook client, which should hopefully be coming soon. So watch the space when it's in there. Now, just before we jump into the rest of the auditing and compliance and the security, which is the area that we really want to focus on more, I just wanted to touch on Excel. Excel is Copilot in Excel I'm struggling with personally. It's still in preview at the moment, and it can analyze data that's in tables. For example, highlight me the information that people as the 5 customers we do the most work with based on a table, or show me the 5 biggest differentiators from last month. So as long as you've got tables, you can interact with it. On a personal basis, I've not really used it. I haven't had really any benefit. That's me personally. I can see people who work with SIX a lot or need to build models getting a lot of use out of the Excel Copilot in Excel. And finally, in Teams. Well, with Teams, I have been using it. You do need to have transcription turned on, hence why I won't be showing a recording of how I'm using it in Teams. But to run through a practical example, if I was sitting in a meeting with a number of people, I had transcription turned on, I can ask it questions in the meeting. For example, summarize the bullet points so far. What other follow-up questions should I ask? What is the tone of the meeting? And that is also quite interesting. So a practical example, the way I've used this was sitting in a meeting with a number of individuals, asking everybody contributing. I had one individual who, shall we say, was very sarcastic and wasn't very helpful. And I asked Teams, what is the tone of the meeting? And it said, everybody's contributing professionally. X responses seem to be sarcastic. So I captured that bit. And after the meeting, I just went to the individual and said, look here, I think you need to see how the meeting was transcribed and recorded. And I shared with the individual that he was being perceived as being sarcastic and not very helpful in the meeting. And I think for the first time, that was a shock for the individual. It was like, hold on, this is not somebody's opinion of me. There's not a human involved in this. This is how I am coming across based on responses that I am giving in a generic meeting. And that was quite interesting, because the response back was, well, okay, I'll rethink how I respond and maybe just contribute more positively. Perfect. That's all we're looking for in Teams. That's what we're looking for from our people. No problem. But it took the whole emotion out of it, took the heat out of it, and it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but it was a great way of dealing with the situation. And with Teams, you can summarize your actions. You can summarize bullet points in the meetings. You can say, for example, as well, by leveraging Teams, what is there any actions from my chat with X over the last week? And it will highlight if there was anything I committed to and then forgot to write down. But Teams is definitely a good way to go. But as I mentioned, you've got to have transcription turned on. Now, if we start with what can I do? Well, it was great that I've been using Copilot. Well, we would like to know what Adrian has been doing in Copilot. Well, we can audit the interaction. So in the Compliance Center in Microsoft Purview, you can start going through the audit and you can search for all of my audit actions where I've interacted with it. So in this example, you can see I've searched between the start date and the end date when I was prepping for the demo. Practically, I've asked for the record types is a Copilot interaction, and I've then were able to execute a search on that to demonstrate all of the interactions that I've had with Copilot on those days. And as you can see, it brought back 88 results has been brought back. And which I can then go and explore. Now, what is interesting from a point of view, these audit actions gives you very limited information. It will show you with what applications I interacted, and it will list any files that it brought back for me, but it won't tell me what type of question I asked or what type of information I searched for. But at least you will have a full audit interaction regarding what was done, when was it interacted, and gives you the ability to start investigating if there's anything that you want to review or worried about that the users have interacted with. Now, you can also run communication compliance. Like you have your compliance looking for personal identifiable information, credit cards, all of the usual or keywords, you can run the same communication compliance to look at where people interact with Copilot. Are they doing anything they shouldn't be doing? For example, offensive language or payroll, I don't know, whatever your keywords is that you're worried about that you want to manage and monitor. You can go into that in communication compliance. I am going to be clear, this is a M365 E5 feature, not none of the other lower licenses. And Microsoft's been very clever with the license allocation. They're making sure that to get the best value out of it, the M365 E5 license for the security and compliance is the way to go. Yes, you can work with Business Premium and Copilot, but there's certain limitations regarding what you can search and what you can do. But with communication compliance, you can specifically monitor for interactions with Copilot for M365. And as you move forward, you can then have these either samples going or alerts going to whoever you want to, who needs to review it on an ongoing basis. But this is great for people who's now testing Copilot for M365 or starting to use it. Go and look at configuring your communication compliance so you can at least look at the interactions that's being received and undertaken. We can also run advanced e-discovery, and I think this is the area that we will be seeing a lot more of. What interaction have I had with Copilot? And as you can see in this example, it worked out that it created a presentation of the document that I showed earlier, where I went into Excel and said create a presentation. It will then bring back what those results was, plus the full follow-up conversation. So anything I do in chat, anything that I do in Word, Excel, all of that information will be recorded, will come back and can be reviewed as part of advanced e-discovery. Again, advanced e-discovery is part of the E5, M365 E5 licenses, whereas for everybody else, you get normal, what we call standard e-discovery. Standard e-discovery will bring back all of the information into a PST effectively at the end, or you can separate it to different styles of documents, but you will have to search through that manually to look for the interaction. So again, a lot of work, a lot of difficulty if you want to start policing or start investigating when there's a potential incident. With advanced e-discovery, you can very quickly review what people have done and what anybody else see from a point of view. And as I say, if you can see here, for example, with the advanced e-discovery, I think I saw something flash up on the left for a follow-up quick question. If we can see the exact prompt that was written by the user in e-discovery, you can with advanced e-discovery. If you look on the slide where I'm sitting here right now, is you can see that my exact prompt was create a presentation full scan and the document that I've done reference. It will also show, as you scroll down this chat, it will show you everything that I've typed, every question that I've asked in detail will be available, and you can look at with the whole timeline against that particular query and incident from a point of view. That you can do in the advanced e-discovery. In the normal in the standard e-discovery, I believe the information is there, but I'll be honest with you, for this presentation, I struggled to find it. It's a lot of effort to try and trawl through it to find the exact prompt. So I see more and more as we move forward, more people will be adding the advanced e-discovery onto their subscriptions where they're using Copilot to be able to really look at what prompts has been done. Now, as I just touched on advanced e-discovery, I just wanted to make sure people know where it's available. So the feature, the premium e-discovery or advanced or premium, depending on how you would like to call it, is Microsoft 365 E5 plus Microsoft Copilot. You can use the premium discovery. You can look at all the search Copilot interactions. You can look at all the contents, do the legal hold, etc. If you've got any of the other licenses, you'll see that you need a minimum of compliance to be able to use the e-discovery premium from a point of view. So it's just to be aware of what the limitations are, what you can do, what you can't do, depending on the licenses that you have in place as you move forward. So be aware of it. Start thinking about what do we do from a compliance point of view. And again, this is not a Copilot issue. This is more of a compliance issue, because most organizations that do deal with compliance already have the compliance add-on as a minimum normally. It just means that you can do much more, see my interactions on an ongoing basis, understanding what do I do, what searches that people have undertaken, because I think that's going to be absolutely critical for yourself as an organization. Is we've enabled all this, what do we have in place? And I think the other thing you've got to remember, just going back a little bit on Copilot's only as good as the information you have inside your system. So if I'm using Copilot and I say, for example, please present me with the information around our corporate policies. If there's a policy from 2011 and a policy from 2015, in 2022, 2023, it might bring back all 4 versions, and it's going to leave me to try and figure out which one is relevant. As an example. But also, if we have a new technical specification on a product and we haven't reflected it correctly or document versioned it correctly, I might get the wrong information back because we still have legacy information lying around on our system. So do remember, you've got to review the data. It's only as good as the information you have access to. So go and review your data governance, your data stewardship, what information you have, how long is it being retained, how do we ensure that we get rid of old information that's not relevant anymore. And these are the challenges that most organizations face. It's not new because of Copilot, it's always been the case, but Copilot just makes it much easier to surface the information and present it back to the users on an ongoing basis. That then brings us on to what I would call the security with the M365 and the Office 365. And these are the areas that we've got to start thinking about. Where is your security inside your organization? What do you have around security? Can you apply retention policies? Can you apply advanced protection? How am I going to present some of the information? What information do I want to keep away from Copilot? How am I going to make sure that if information is generated, that security keeps moving with that document? And a good example is, let's say you are using data labeling or data information governance, information protection. You will have, for example, if I reference a document that was labeled as secure internal use only, and I generated a new document referencing a document with that security, well, that new document will have the same security labels moved with it if I'm on the M365 E5 license. If I'm not, you got to make sure you have a process to think about how do I keep that information safe? How do I prevent people who don't have access to that information? And that is why we say, think about your information governance, start labeling documents, start putting in technical controls around labeling, protection, encryption of your data. Start thinking about it. How am I going to apply retention policies? Am I going to apply retention policies regarding Copilot interaction? What auditing do I need to put in place? But these are not new questions. These are not specific to Copilot. I know a lot of people are making it a big Copilot question. How do I, what, it's not that it's new, it's always been there. We're just being forced to think about it a bit more, because guess what, all users want to do more. They want to be more productive, to leverage Copilot. And as an organization, we can't really say, sorry, we're not going to invest in it. We don't want to make you more productive versus your competitors or your colleagues, because we have lax security controls or lack data governance in place. It's not a great position to be in. And this is probably where we see the biggest challenge at the moment is, how do I get my security in place? How do I improve my data compliance? And what we've done here on this slide is just map out some of the restrictions that you get and the difference between M365 E3 and E5 protection. And as we can see there, for example, search for Copilot generated content. Well, you get the standard e-discovery in both of those. But as I mentioned, it's hard. If you don't have the premium e-discovery, you're not going to find that information very easily. Same with the audit logs, same with the retention policies. You've got to think about, are we going to adopt Copilot? Are we happy with the logs that we keep? Or do we need to start thinking about upgrading our subscription moving forward? Are we going to get a benefit out of it? But do think about the information you have. Do think about some of the data. Think about what you are going to be adding on. Request, for example, review who has access to your content in 365. I mean, access reviews running. Do your regular auditing of your environment, because people do overshare. People share information. People upload information they shouldn't. It's just a great way to control and review permissions inside your organization. But this is not new challenges, as I keep saying. This is existing challenges that lots of organizations are facing today. And we need to just try and keep working forward on how we can move with it. And then think about your data loss prevention. Use your classifiers, for example. Use your communication compliance. A lot of organizations already own these licenses. Yes, I know not everybody on this call today will have M365 E5, or they'll have some features of this, but start off, look at what you've got, understand where you are, understand your risk appetite, and then decide how are we going to be moving forward. Because I can tell you now, I was a skeptic when I first started with Copilot, but as I said earlier, I'm not giving back my license. I won't give it up anymore. It's already made me productive. And yes, I get the feedback, well, £300 or £296 a user is expensive. Yes, it sounds expensive, but break it down to it's £1 a day. If it saves me more than 15 minutes, it's more than paid for itself each day. If it saves me an hour a week, it's probably paid for itself for that week. You're not going to be using it for every role. You're going to be using it in certain roles. Build up those roles where you want to deploy it, understand the potential impact it's going to have on the business, and then move forward. And what I'm seeing right now is the number of organizations adding a few licenses, getting their head around it, start tracking what they can do. And it will depend on the organization regarding the information that you have. How much personal identifiable information do you have access to? Have you made your, for example, is finance in scope or out of scope? It's just making sure that you keep looking at these areas that you want to control from a point of view. But please submit your questions. We're just finishing off with a few more slides, and then I'm going to go into the questions and answer session. I'll just leave that up for one last minute if you want to have a look at it. Then the questions I normally get is, where do we start? I don't know where to start. Well, what I normally recommend is let's look at using something like our Assess 365 service, which is a security assessment, looking at how mature your security is, mapping out currently how ready you are for Copilot as well, the controls, your technical controls and security controls, as well as your data controls you have against the CIS framework. There's a number of versions of these available. There's a quick scan, full scan, and as a service. I'm seeing more and more organizations, especially running the full scan for the larger organizations where they have all of the complex requirements, big Azure environments, just to understand where we are, how mature it is, what is the best roadmap that we can build regarding securing ourselves. Microsoft, everybody else, there will be different names to these, but it all comes down to security and compliance. What control do you have in place? Reach out, speak to Softworks if you want to look at the Assess 365. As I say, it's a comprehensive report. It goes into all of the areas around your 365 configuration, your security, SharePoint, Azure, and helps you build up an executive management report that you can present back to your organization with including a roadmap on how to improve your security over the next 30, 60, 90, 180 days. Because for a lot of organizations, this is going to be a journey. It's not that Copilot's doing it. People want to use it now. These security should be in place already. It should be best practice, and it just helps you prepare yourself on moving forward. What I'm going to do is just stop on this slide for questions and answers, and I'm just going to ask Phoebe and give everybody a chance to answer questions. And Phoebe, I think there's been a few questions, so I'm just questions. So the first one that I received is, does these not raise questions on data privacy? Absolutely. It raised a question on data privacy, but the data was already private or should already be secure. As I mentioned earlier, Copilot is not doing anything new. It's just making it easier to surface the information I already have access to. And I think I normally call it security by obscurity. That is not a strategy. It's not a security. If you've got a data privacy concern with Copilot right now, you already got a data privacy concern inside the organization. All that Copilot is doing is making it easier for the staff to surface the information. So for example, in SharePoint, I can go and search for certain information in SharePoint already, but it's just a bit more clumsy. I can search for the data in OneDrive. I can search for the data in my email. But again, it's just more clumsy. What this does is it indexes it, makes it a lot easier, and let me present that information very quickly. So coming back to my first point is data hygiene, data security is absolutely critical, and you should be doing that already. Then I think I answered this one. Does anybody know if we can see the exact prompt that was written in the by the user in eDiscovery? Yes, you can see the exact prompt that the user written with it, with the premium eDiscovery premium. As I demonstrated, you can see all of that on an ongoing basis. Can Copilot be limited to only analyze documents provided to it, for example, technical comparison, without allowing it to index what the user has access to? At the moment, I'm not aware that it can do that. You can limit the target areas of where Copilot can index. but there isn't a way of just indexing certain documents. You can exclude certain areas or provide or wrap security around the system, but you can't actually completely remove it from indexing, because the cyber graph, the semantic index, is already there. It's already happening in the background, and I'm not aware of a way to exclude and just access it to specific areas. Can Copilot configure to specific SharePoint site for indexing? I believe you can. They are working on making it a lot more granular from a point of view. It's early days, as I keep kind of saying to people, but we are talking about, can I just target certain areas? What you can do as well is you can create different levels of encryption or create different labels across sites that you want to target, and think about what are we limiting it. Where do we use double encryption to avoid it being indexed, or do we limit access to what the users can see to bring back certain information only? But again, this needs to be analyzed. I'm not going to say yes or no on a specific basis, but we got to remember Copilot's not been out for that long. We are continuously seeing improvements, and if you go to roadmap.microsoft.com, you can see the roadmap that they are mapping out for the improvements that is coming into their product. And you've got to remember as well, there's a number of additional Copilots. So Security Copilot is coming. I think they're talking about it's going into general availability in the near future. So that will be one of the areas we deal with in one of our future workshops. But you will see more and more of these systems come on board, it getting better, more granular, and as I get more feedback from the enterprise and from the user community, I see a lot more granular control will be put in place on an ongoing basis. As I'm finishing up, I'm just going to ask if there's any more questions. Please feel free to ask them, but if not, think about, just to summarize, think about starting with a Microsoft Securities assessment. Keep signing up to these webinars and our in-person events. We will have a next workshop again on the 27th of March, the next one. And in this area, I will cover more of the security and compliance in 365, because I think for a lot of organizations, they don't really realize everything that's available to cover from a security point of view that we have in place. And a lot of this is owned, but even just getting the basics like MFA, conditional access, DLP, get retention, labeling. What is my policy regarding how long do we retain emails for example? That is all critical information. And now we will look more around the Microsoft security architecture at the next workshop, because with Copilot, go and add some licenses, test it, and then think about how you are going to move forward from a security point of view. But thank you very much for joining me today. As I say, feel free to mail me directly, adrian.backer@softworks.com, and I will endeavor to answer your questions. Feel free to upload any further questions you might be having today, and apologies again for the Q&A session not working, but I'm sure that Microsoft will get that fixed for the next one. Thank you very much for joining.